As it's tradition, welcome everybody to episode 196 of the Hoots Podcast. We're recording this live on YouTube right now, so make sure to subscribe, tell a friend or foe. This is a pro wrestling podcast for your listening pleasure and a positive mental escape for any personal issues that are going throughout your life or just any issues going on in general. Hopefully everybody's being safe out there with this new coronavirus that's sweeping the nation. My name's Joshie. You can follow me on Twitter at TheHootsPodcast. We do this podcast every single Thursday. The show's brought to you by Spotify and Anchor. If you want to start a podcast just like yours truly, go to anchor.fm, sign up. It could be about any podcast. It could be about sex. It could be about pro wrestling. It could be about movies. Any podcast that floats your boat, you could put up on Anchor and they'll ship it out to 10 different streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, all that fun stuff. Make sure to subscribe to the Hoots Podcast right there. We are 4 episodes away from episode 200. Episode 200 will be April 9th, 2020, right after I come back from Tampa Bay for WrestleMania week, and I'm excited for that. So with that said, I'm not alone this week. I have a guest. Going forward in the future, we're going to have more guests on the Who's podcast, but this is something that's long overdue. We've been promoting it a lot on social media. So you guys pretty much know who it is. I have the former host of the Pipe Bomb with McCool Company. He is the one and only Matt McCool. Matt, what's going on, man?
It's been a long time coming, Josh, but I'm so excited to be here and be back on air with you. Love wrestling. Me and you became really good friends and had a lot of great times together, and I just really appreciate you having me on today. Thank you.
Absolutely. For those who are watching this live on YouTube right now, make sure to interact with us in the chat room, and we'll love to interact with you. We have our old segment that we did on the Pipe Bomb called the 3 Count, which we're going to be doing at the end of this week's podcast. Don't you worry. I'll have to reach out to Brett Carter and see if we have a new episode of The Thoughts of Jericho, and I'll probably be on the audio version of the podcast. So I'll have to find out what the director of operations, or the doo-doo, as I like to call him, the doo-doo.
Oh my God.
We'll see what he's up to. It is Thursday. It is Throwback Thursday, and you actually sent me a link to the debate episode that we did about 3.5 years ago, which is absolutely
that was so wild. Essentially, me and Derek always went back and forth between Sasha and Charlotte, so we decided to promote it as a debate. And Derek always drinks red, I would drink white. We came up with questions, Josh moderated, and it was some of the funnest times I ever had podcasting or just in general. I won the debate, but Derek put up a great argument, so that was a blast.
Oh, it was probably up there my top 5 favorite episodes that I've done on any show. I think I've done like 500 plus like wrestling podcast talk shows in the last 6 to 7 years. So it's been a grind, but it's cool that we're back on air together, and it's been long overdue, and I'm really happy for everybody that's been excited for this reunion. And we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna talk about the Elimination Chamber, which Matt was at this past Sunday at the Wells Fargo Center, and then we're gonna talk about just general pro wrestling topics. I don't think we're gonna have time to go blow by blow, Raw, SmackDown, like other shows used to do in the past. Like we don't have time for that. This is a general conversation as if I'm sitting next to Matt and we're talking about pro wrestling. This is not really like a Sports Center type of podcast. So with that said, let's get this bad boy started. We're actually going to be talking about kind of the landscape of pro wrestling. I kind of hate saying the state of wrestling because everybody does the state of wrestling every single week. But since I have Matt on here, and this is the first time we're talking about what's been going on in the business, and a lot has changed since the last time we've done a podcast together. So there's a lot going on. So Matt, let's start off with this in a positive note. What's floating your boat, and what's your just overall point of view of what's going on in the pro wrestling business right now?
I mean, it's an extremely exciting time for any wrestling fan. Unfortunately, a lot of the negativity comes from people just not sitting there and just enjoying what's on. You famously tweet, there's so many options for people to watch. If you like this, you like that, they have it for you. I like the variety right now. WrestleMania is coming up. Obviously, I love Sasha's new character, and I'm enjoying all the talent in WWE. But there is definitely a lot of things I would like to see changed in wrestling. I'll always be a huge wrestling fan, but it just seems like nowadays it's a lot easier to fast forward through your DVR and skip for example, Ricochet and AJ Styles match you've seen five or six times, or Baron Corbin and Roman Reigns. It was going on for about 6 months. I love wrestling. I think there's always a lot of positives, and you can be a negative Nancy if you don't enjoy what you watch. You shouldn't be watching it, but in general, I think things are okay. The business has obviously changed since I've been on air with WWE's new TV deals, AEW, which at the end of the day, AEW, even getting a TV deal and coming on TV, really made WWE better, and it made WWE put NXT live, which I think is the best wrestling show, bell to bell today. So I think the landscape's okay. I hope WrestleMania goes on. Obviously, want to make sure that people are safe, and I know you're headed down to Tampa Bay in a couple weeks, hopefully. But it's a fun time to be a wrestling fan. And at the end of the day, I think that, look at the positives versus the negatives. Obviously, we're human beings, and your negativity comes to your mind. But in general, like I've always been with the pipe bomb or with you, I'll be real. But, just try and stay positive with things when it comes to wrestling.
And let's put pro wrestling aside for a moment, because this is also a live podcast. I've always treated pro wrestling as a life escape, because that's what it's always been for me. And now where I kind of transition my life, where I don't look at pro wrestling as a fan anymore with this, what I do for a living now, cover the business, and I had to get all these moves down. And like you're saying, I have a different perspective. Like, I could understand if you get tired watching a certain match over and over again on a weekly television show. I totally get that.
Yeah.
But for me, it's a little different. I gain more practice of honing my skills typing wise, and then once I get an opportunity to do like play by play, I can do it right off the top of my head. Like, that's why I'm doing articles now, and I have a little different approach to pro wrestling, which is perfectly fine. But I think I've been able to enjoy, and you know this, you know me a lot longer than a lot of people we've done shows with, but like I've found a deeper appreciation for the product from all the shows, not just WWE related, just by breaking it down and trying to look at the bigger picture of where they're going with certain things. And I think a lot of times we get so antsy with certain things because we have a big attention span issue in this country. No matter what the situation, people get antsy. They want things now. They want everything to make sense, like a major television show like Breaking Bad and all that stuff. But I think people kind of miss the charm of what pro wrestling is, where people make fun of you and for its silliness and the fact that sometimes it doesn't make sense. Like, you can't have a Game of Thrones pro wrestling show. I don't care who you are. You can have good storylines, but it's to that level of a Sopranos or Breaking Bad or any of these other shows in the past, you're just not going to get that with the art form that we're talking about. Pro wrestling is supposed to be fun. It can be whatever you want it to be, and I think that's what was fun about doing the pipe bomb back then, is that we talked about that instead of lamenting about what it should be or whatever,
Yeah, I mean, I always really enjoy your perspective when it came to you do the articles, and you're honing your craft, want to become an announcer, and watching all the shows. For me, obviously, it's different. I've been out of the podcasting game for about 2 years now, and I always watch it as a fan. I mean, if I don't want to watch something, I just straight up won't watch it. But I agree. I'm a big picture guy, and I'm always looking down the line. It's just interesting when wrestling fans expect WWE, like you said, to come up with Game of Thrones style storylines and characters and endings. And then even when they try to do so, people knock it down and don't recognize it. It's tough. I mean, I've always given WWE a lot of credit because they have to write TV 52 weeks a year. And now it's not just Raw, which is the main story, and it goes over to SmackDown. It's Raw, SmackDown, NXT, NXT UK, 205 Live. They're opening up more performance centers. Like, there's so much wrestling content out there. And I look at it more towards, if you like something, watch it. If you don't, then pretty much don't. And I think that a lot of people and friends of ours and colleagues that were in podcasting in the game for a couple of years, I think have kind of trended towards that way. But I love fantasy booking, and we're always all looking towards, okay, who's going to face AJ or who's going to face Undertaker at WrestleMania and so on and so forth.
Right. Well, since I got you here, my friend, let's talk about AEW. This is the first time you're gonna be able to talk about just your overall thoughts on the brand since it started last year. And is there anything in particular you like about AEW Dynamite, or any dislikes from? Obviously, it's just a new company, so obviously you can't have a full rage discussion about what their future is gonna be. But just from your early takeaways from what AEW is, what you like and what you don't like about AEW.
Full disclosure, I obviously, followed the business, know Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, the whole crew, who they were. I never necessarily watched every New Japan pay-per-view or followed them before AEW. I mean, I knew who they were, obviously. But when it was announced, I was very excited because, like I said, a couple minutes ago, it naturally, as soon as it got on TV, gave WWE true competition. And, obviously competition makes other people better. And it's just been really cool for me as a fan who heard people that are older than me say, oh, yeah, I used to be a WCW guy. I used to be a WWE guy. I used to watch both things at once. And now, I can sit down and I have, watch AEW and NXT at the same time on two different TVs. And at the end of the day, regardless of the product, I think that's pretty cool. And I think people need to recognize that. It's a different show. I think WWE is better wrestlers. I think AEW stories are pretty good. It's pretty early to really give it a full judgment. I do think they have the best tag team division in the world. I love their tag team wrestling. I like how they've, prioritized guys like Darby Allin and, making MJF look like an alcoholic and fun stuff like that. But me and you have talked about this off air, and I talked about it with other people too. I don't think that we should crown AEW as the next greatest wrestling show. Ever since it started, I've, obviously kept up with it and watched NXT and AEW here and there, but AEW for me is not a must-see wrestling show every single week. If it's on and, I'll watch it. A lot of times recently it's been Flyers games, which is kind of taking precedence, but it's not my favorite wrestling show. I'll watch it. I'm happy AEW exists. And I'm very intrigued to see where they go moving forward. I know that they've said that they really want to put a focus on younger talent, getting guys over, and that's great too. But, also interested to see once people's contracts expire with WWE, like Matt Hardy, like Luke Harper, how that exodus is going to affect WWE and make AEW better. But it's going to be fun to watch.
I want to get your thoughts on this because I think identity is very important, especially for newer pro wrestling companies. I don't think you could form an identity of what your brand is after 1 year. Yeah. I think that needs a certain amount of time. Obviously, I mean, Lucha Underground was only around for 3 years, but before it went away, you kind of got a gist of what they were going for. One of the issues why Impact Wrestling can never seem to take that next step or find some consistency with their organization is that one second they want to be a next evolution of the Attitude Era. The next second, they want to be New Japan Pro Wrestling. The next part, they have bad ownership, and it goes all over the place where you're on 3 different networks. And then now where you have Impact on Access TV, and it just looks like a show that I would watch on ECW in the late 90s, heavy emphasis on Rob Van Dam and Rhino and Tommy Dreamer in main events here and there. I'm happy that Tessa Blanchard got the opportunity to be the main world championship. I think that's really cool, and she's a really good performer. But it also gets to the point where, she has promo segments and she main events here and there, but it doesn't feel like she's the actual world champion at times. And I feel like Impact is kind of gone in a wayside where you're focused on Johnny Swingers of the world or Disco Inferno and all these other guys that really add nothing to the product. Like I put it out on the article the other day, Sabu return. awesome for the 15th time in the last 2 years. And he's probably going to do the same thing with table spots and everything we know about Sabu. And this is, I think identity is very important. I think people kind of forget about that because when you look at AEW, and sometimes when I watch Dynamite, I feel like I'm watching a WCW show. The next week, I think I'm watching a Ring of Honor show. I'm just talking about match-wise and TV formatting structure. They have a lot of WCW style brawls that close out the show. Like, I can't tell you how many times the Inner Circle has gotten a brawl at the end of a Dynamite. It's kind of getting repetitive at this point. Or you have matches like the Lucha Brothers against, let's see, Private Party, right? And it'd be the same style tag team match that you can see at any local independent show. I'm not saying that's a dig. Like, I appreciate the wrestling, like you said. They have a lot of good wrestlers on their show, honestly. But I think you're kind of sending a odd message when you call yourself All Elite Wrestling and you're adding kind of an elitist attachment to what your company is, and then you kind of cry victim when people call you out. Like, you can't call yourself All Elite Wrestling and not have elite standards. This is different. This is the company that said that they were going to solve all the issues that fans have with the WWE. This is going to be the alternative for everybody that can't stand the WWE anymore. And I feel a lot of times they send mixed messages. I love Cody Rhodes. He's an awesome performer. But also, you don't want your company to be like TNA, yet you're focusing on having former WWE guys to bring in viewers to your show. You have Jon Moxley as a world champion. I like Jon Moxley, but do I consider Jon Moxley to be a top 5 or top 10 wrestler in the world right now? No. That doesn't mean I have issues with the guy, but I think the decisions you make sends a message to people who are watching your show for the first time. So when you have bad commentary, when you decide to have 3 play-by-play guys in one booth, and JR can't keep up with the speed of some of these matches, and I hate saying that because JR is the reason why I got into wrestling in the first place. I think AEW has a messaging problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was a great take. I loved how you kind of connected all the dots with TNA and AEW, and there's a lot for me to respond to there. Whether it comes to branding an apartment building, branding a wrestling company, branding a character, you have to find a way to differentiate yourselves. Why should I take my discretionary time, my income, and spend my time watching Raw or AEW to connect with your character? There has to be a reason for it. And obviously, we've talked about ratings a lot there too, but I agree with you 100%. The AEW has felt like a different show a lot of the weeks. In terms of impact, I'm very surprised they're still a company. I love all these people more than most, but I mean, I can't tell you that we weren't on WR Pod or the Pipe Bomb or whatever, joking about when TNA is going to fold, and they've had different investors, different networks. I mean, they've got a branding and image problem, but it's almost like, no disrespect to anyone that's on the roster there. For me, it's kind of like an afterthought. I really missed the heyday of TNA when I was just WWE and kind of going through middle school. My parents actually didn't want me to watch wrestling, which is a funny story, multiple times. But I don't. Obviously, TNA is a different option, but I don't really see it as being on the same playing field. And they've had a branding problem for a long time. They went from TNA Impact to changing their ring, to going pushing young guys, to signing veterans. They had Hogan. They basically have had everything. They've tried everything, and it's at the end of the day, it's not going to work. And I definitely agree with your point. And like I said, we talked about this off air as well. That AEW fans, and I don't want to link these two groups together, but it just seems like it's the same people that in a couple years ago were every time you watch Raw or SmackDown or WrestleMania, insert X match is not as good as Kenny Omega and Okada at Wrestle Kingdom, or whatever you want to throw the Young Bucks doing. And those people, they're very negative. And I don't really care what you want to watch. And I've said this multiple times. And Jason Maltov from NAI, who work with, great friend and stuff, he always said, if you don't like it, don't watch it. And I'm 100% there with you. And we'll see what happens with AEW and WWE. I know they've been winning the ratings wars by a little bit. I know they've been winning the 18 to 49 demographic big time, and a lot of NXT is a much older demographic. But when you watch NXT and the storyline progression and the wrestling each week, the depth of the roster, they have the best women's division in the world. I watch NXT for the women's division, and compared to AEW, I've seen some of the matches. It's not even close. And honestly, the division's embarrassing for somebody that is such a big women's wrestling fan. And you know that about me. It's my favorite part about the business. I did the Shattered Glass cast with Chip and referee Tony S for a little bit, Chip and Damien, my bad, for a little bit. And that's a big insult too. I feel like they kind of just signed a few girls from the indies. And the main focus of the show and the selling point of AEW was, okay, we got Jericho, we got Moxley, we had the Young Bucks, but that was not really considered. They should have thrown a bunch of money at Tessa Blanchard. They should have signed Emma. They could have done different things to kind of make that better. I know they're trying to work on it, and Cody said that. But it does have to get better, and AEW is good, and I like watching it, but I think that there's a lot of holes in it, and just like there's holes in WWE, but if you can't criticize and give your opinion about the product based on the fans that watch it, then, that's very, very wrong.
You can find holes in any pro wrestling product. And trust me, I could pick them out from any of the 9 shows I cover in a week. It's absolutely insane. Like, for those who don't know, I kind of devote around 18 hours a week to pro wrestling, just with the articles I do. So
I always thought it was just so amazing, dude. I don't know how you don't have the strongest fingers in the entire world.
I do, and it's odd. Like, I could type fast, but I got Sasha's link fingers. So I'll bring this up to the screen here. I got Sasha's link fingers, and I'm also able to play the guitar too. I don't know how I do it, man. I think the man upstairs more than anything for that.
All talent, Josh. That's for sure. You were texting me yesterday about, oh yeah, I got to do the articles. I'm going to do them back to back. I have no idea how you do that. That's really impressive. But I think it gives you such a different perspective, and it always has. Looking at it, like you said, is writing the articles not as a fan, just enjoying the wrestling for what it is. Because a lot of people put their emotion into it. And I've been a victim of it as well. When a certain guy or girl goes over, you're mad, you're upset, you're a fan. Oh, this sucks. This is awful. So I'm not going to watch it. Whereas, you're watching it to cover it and, taking the positives out of everything. Obviously we're all human, but, it is, there's a lot of people on wrestling Twitter that do podcasts, that tweet and stuff, that go out of their way to criticize the business, and you need to be true to yourself. But there's also a line where, you should find something else better to do in your life than to criticize, just as an example, Baron Corbin for X, Y, and Z.
Hey, you're criticizing Baron Corbin. He's doing his job.
Exactly.
Get your feelings, man. Hey, don't you think that's a kind of sad state of affairs where you actually have a moniker dubbed wrestling Twitter? Don't you think that's kind of ridiculous? If you really,
yeah, wrestling Twitter's been wrestling Twitter for a very, very long time. It was extremely enjoyable because I usually have not been able to watch the Saudi Arabian shows live, and I was able to do that a couple weeks ago. And earlier in the day, some people were tweeting about Goldberg winning, and I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if Goldberg beats Bray Wyatt. And I've always enjoyed watching wrestling Twitter explode because people just get completely irrational. Say what you want about the decision in general, but it's just an example of how crazy people can be. And then literally I said to people, I was like, all right, well, the next day, all this is going to be over when, Bray Wyatt is going to face John Cena, movie star, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. In his return match at WrestleMania, he's going to beat John Cena versus losing to Roman Reigns, which for a fact, if you say, okay, I wanted Bray to beat Goldberg. Once Roman would have beaten Bray Wyatt, you would have done the same thing on the internet. You would have complained, oh, Roman's pushed all the time. He's main evented 5 WrestleMania. It's just a cycle, and it's an unfortunate cycle that people should not participate in. And it happens not only in wrestling, it happens with sports. I'm from Philadelphia, and the fans here are very reactionary. We're passionate, but we're also very negative. And plus, entertainment shows like The Bachelor. Bachelor destroyed Peter the entire season. Bachelor Twitter might be worse than wrestling Twitter. It's absolutely awful.
Oh boy.
But yeah, it just depends.
I don't remember the last time I watched that show, by the way. Anyways, isn't this the same people? They're like, oh, I don't really care about the Saudi show, and then they went on the fucking soapbox after the show.
They don't realize that Goldberg winning the title, or Goldberg being on that show, Undertaker being on that show, X, Y, and Z draws so many eyes and money to the product and casual fans that may decide to spend their income or go to a show.
Ooh.
WWE is not necessarily catering towards their hardcore fans anymore, and there's been arguments, on both sides. I think they do in ways, but people need to take their fandom and their glasses out of it sometimes and understand this is a business.
Right.
And at the end of the day, WWE is trying to make money and grow their brand. So 10 years down the line, people can be extremely excited once Seth Rollins returns, like Edge just did, and creating new stars and keeping people tuned in on the product. It's hard sometimes, but
let me ask you about that really quick, because I know you were a really big Edge fan. I was growing up, like, tell me about what was your reaction when you saw Edge make his return at the Royal Rumble, and also what do you think about what they've been doing so far with him and Randy Orton? Because honestly, in my opinion, if you look at the trajectory of Randy Orton, his best programs and feuds have always been on Monday Night Raw, and this dude's on another level right now. But go ahead, Rick. What was your thoughts on Edge's return?
Yeah, I'm so happy you brought that up. So there's obviously with wrestling and with sports, to get into it, you have to have an emotional connection with a superstar or an athlete or whatever. And ever since I started watching wrestling, I loved Evolution, I loved JBL, and I loved Edge. And I used to walk around middle school acting like I had a girlfriend and I was cool like Edge with Lita, and I think a lot of us did in our childhood. And the Radar Superstar thing was a great idea. Edge played the character perfectly. And like I said, I gotten in and out of the product during that time, and I just had gotten back in 2011, and to watch him retire and the emotion that followed, right after winning a title and having his dreams and his livelihood be taken away was hard to see. And if I'm being honest, I never thought Edge would wrestle again. I never thought Bryan would wrestle again. But now with, new doctors and then being able to train and, get healthy and get cleared, it's unreal. And it was really cool to see Edge go away from the business and, get jobs with Vikings and, have his own podcast and really kind of find himself, because just like any pro athlete, like when it's time to hang the boots up or the cleats up or whatever, it's difficult. But he kind of embraced his new life, and I'd heard the rumors for a long time, and I thought when he speared Elias at SummerSlam, which, by the way, that was very coy. Like, it was on the pre-show, and they made a YouTube video, but I was like, wait a second, like, Edge just got physical in the ring, so, like, what does that mean? It kind of went over my head. Heard the rumors, figured he would come out, but Edge coming out at the Rumble is a reason why I love wrestling. Just those moments that just take you back to your childhood, that draw emotion out of you. Like when I watched Edge retire, I was an 18-year-old kid trying to figure life out. And 10 years later to watch him come back and hear the crowd and watch him go up against AJ Styles and Roman Reigns at the Rumble was just amazing. And I really hope he, is careful and gets to wrestle for a couple years and have all these dream matchups. And in terms of the feud with Randy Orton, it's perfect. It's been booked perfectly. Everybody always says, when Randy's dialed in, Randy's the best. And when Randy's the heel and he plays that role and he's this vindictive snake. That's just like when he was facing Triple H at WrestleMania about 10 years ago when he went to his house. And when he gets into that mode, there's nobody better. And I think the story's been played out great. I love how they kept Edge off TV for, a month or so. Randy was RKO and Beth Phoenix and taking Matt Hardy off TV. There's a lot of people on Twitter talking about how this match at main event WrestleMania. whenever it happens. And I'm one of them that thinks it should too. It seems like it's every year there's not the title match, but the marquee match between two other guys. And this is definitely that, but it's on a whole nother level considering the history and Edge's return.
I really enjoyed the Triple H Batista program for last year's WrestleMania because that was also a big part of my childhood, just like this one was. We're actually, for those who are watching this right now, we're going to be talking about the Ruthless Aggression series that's been airing on the network later on in the podcast. But since this is the catch up with McCool episode, I'm just going to fire off a bunch of different topics going on with WWE and give your thoughts on it positively or negatively, and then we'll go from there. All right.
Let's do it. It's like a PTI around the horn style thing.
Yeah, this will be rapid fire real quick. First question. Convince me and tell me what we should expect from a Sasha Banks album.
To be the best rapper of all time, Josh. No, I just hope they release it on Spotify because I've had to go on YouTube and listen to the music for the last 6 months. Obviously, first world problems. There's a coronavirus out right now. But I just hope they release it, and I love the new theme. I think it's awesome.
Oh man.
Dude, you know me too well. I'm driving around my car listening to that, walking into everywhere listening to that. It's awesome. I think that, and I want to talk more about the whole Sasha later, but I think the transformation of her character, it just made the most sense to change the theme so it was a full kind of new Sasha Banks.
Don't get me wrong, I like the new change to the character. I think the blue hair really fits her really well, and her having this heel dynamic is really good. I'm just generally indifferent to Bayley, so it doesn't really take away from Sasha. But I will say this though, I love Snoop Dogg. I'm a fan of 90s rap music and all that fun stuff, but that's probably the worst entrance song I've heard in the last 5 to 10 years. Every time chuckling, don't get me wrong, the beat's good. I'll give you that. Yeah. This way how they have the original the Sasha intro, then they do that boom, boom, ba-dum, I think it's cool, but it's like the yes, yo, Sasha Banks, yo. Why the fuck am I listening to this song? Yes, yo. Oh man, I don't know. It's a disconnect. There's a disconnect with that remix, and I don't know why.
Well, she came out for the first time in London, and we all heard about it on Twitter before it aired on TV.
Right.
And then after that, she didn't really come out to the entrance because she was hurt for a little bit. So I don't think that it's been given its full run with her full solo entrance yet. But I don't know, man. That's hard to say. I can't think off the top of my head right now, but there's got to be worse entrance themes the last 10 years than that.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure. And the Snoop Dogg thing is I'm shocked, like I said a second ago, I'm shocked they haven't done that yet. It's been a couple years and everybody knows Snoop Dogg. It just gives her character a whole new dimension, and it really just does fit who she is now. And that's really why I like it so much. Sometimes, guys and girls have cool themes. Other times it's just a random rock song because they turn heel. But this theme, taking, my Phantom out of it, obviously. Right. I think it does fit the character really well.
Yeah, there's a lot. Of course, there's a lot of bad songs. I mean, I think Kenny Omega's AEW song absolutely sucks. Yeah. I
love you.
I don't even know what music Bayley's going for with her theme music.
That's weird.
Yeah, that's another show for another time. But let's continue on with this bad boy. Really quick, your thoughts on Drew McIntyre winning the Royal Rumble and also being the guy to fight Brock Lesnar this year? And also, do you think there's a chance where this match is a competitive match or a Brock Lesnar style WrestleMania match to the likes of what you saw with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 34 or Dean Ambrose at WrestleMania 32?
Oh God, I was there. That was awful, but there was a lot of reasons for that. Dean talked about that. Anyway, I love Drew McIntyre. I couldn't be happy for him when he got re-signed by WWE, and went on the Indies and really perfected his craft and got a second chance and then NXT. I didn't think that there was anyone else that really necessarily made sense.
Right.
I know that Rollins last year was the guy, and it didn't work for a little bit. Then at WrestleMania, people got behind him again. But Drew McIntyre slaying the Beast feels a lot better and makes a lot more sense to me. Logical sense, too, considering that Brock is the most competitive, amazing combat athlete in the world, being UFC champion and stuff. For Drew McIntyre to beat him than Seth Rollins. I'm really happy for him.
This guy I'm going to mention up next is a candidate for the Go the Fuck Home segment later on. But what's your thoughts on Jerry Lawler being back on commentary on Raw? Yeah, let me preface this by saying that I really dig this new group that Seth Rollins has with the Monday Night Messiah. I like the graphic and the church background he has on the Titantron screen. But I'll say this. I want to get your thoughts on this. Jerry Lawler, and I know he's getting lines fed to him from Vince McMahon. I understand that. But Jerry Lawler does his style of commentary does Seth Rollins no favors with this group so far. What's your thoughts on King being back on commentary?
It's about to be like an old school pipe bomb episode in a second. If I'm being completely honest with you guys, I boo him when I go to WWE events. I've never been a fan of this commentary. Maybe back in the day when he was on commentary with JBL and they were the only two guys for a couple years. I like JBL. I just think that Jerry is awful at commentary, and I'm not a WWE announcer. Like, no offense, it's just my opinion. I just don't enjoy him at all whatsoever. In terms of the Rollins team, I give WWE credit and I Paul Heyman credit for trying. It's an interesting story. They obviously had to turn Seth heel. It wasn't working. I like the whole Monday Night Messiah thing. I like how it kind of reminds me of Evolution, where you've got the guy that's up on the ups, Buddy Murphy. You got the tag team. It all makes sense. It just seems like there's something that's not clicking there, where they've got the faction. Seth's the heel. Kevin Owens is obviously very popular, going to fight WrestleMania, but to me, there's just something there that just doesn't click at all.
Well, I think the reason I kind of resonated with this group is because it's been a consistent story, because you kind of saw the transition of Seth Rollins going back to a bad guy before Survivor Series, and he was always trying to be the flag bearer after he beat Brock Lesnar for the Universal title, and he was doing everything he can to be like the guy of Raw. He would team up with Becky Lynch. He would go after Brock Lesnar, bring the title back to Raw and being on house shows. And then, people got in their feelings over comments he made about Jon Moxley on the podcast. And then, you go to a SummerSlam show and people are booing him out of the building. Now it becomes cool to boo Seth Rollins. And then you saw what happened at Survivor Series. NXT just absolutely obliterates Raw and SmackDown. I was actually at that show in Chicago. So that was a pretty fun pay-per-view. And then the night after that Monday Night Raw, you remember they had that town hall meeting, and Seth Rollins just goes off the deep end. He's talking shit to Rey Mysterio. You should be more focused on helping Raw than your stupid son. And then
that was funny. I remember that,
because that's literally the start of the Seth Rollins Kevin Owens feud. I just appreciate that they've been consistent with this thing, and it hasn't been the thing that was rushed to the Royal Rumble and then just they went their separate ways. I want to get your thoughts on a potential match idea, and I've been talking about this on the podcast over the last couple weeks. They really haven't. I'll say this: WWE at times misses out on opportunities to make marquee gimmick matches with the younger talents on these bigger shows. Mm-hmm. And I thought, every time you have a Hell in a Cell match at a WrestleMania, it's always been the Undertaker or Triple H involved with it. But I thought it'd be really cool to have Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens be the first current stars to have a Hell in a Cell match at WrestleMania, to have this feud, and it gives Rollins a couple times. Rollins will obviously lose, right? But he could get some time off at the WrestleMania with that match. It's kind of like a loser leaves town type of thing. It's a Hell in a Cell match. but you have Triple H as a special guest referee. He's the conduit between both Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins. It's a match idea I've been thinking about. You can't tell me that Triple H is not going to have some part of WrestleMania. So I don't know if he's going to show this week in Pittsburgh. They got everybody in that fucking show this Monday. They got Austin. They got Undertaker.
Steve Austin for the yearly let's bring Steve Austin on the show so we can improve ratings and
at least it's 316 day. So.
Yeah, it's not just like, oh, this is the Raw reunion because we feel like it.
Right.
But yeah, you said a lot there. I love that idea. I'm always down for the blow off matches and feuds where they've been going at it for a long time, and I know both guys would absolutely tear the house down. And you brought up Triple H. That would kind of bring their story full circle. If you guys don't remember, Triple H handing the Universal Championship to Kevin Owens, and flash forward a couple years later, they're in a different position. But that's a great idea. I love it.
Yes, sir. And if I was a Messiah, I wouldn't be wearing that jacket that Rollins is wearing. I don't even know if a Messiah would wear that.
I also wouldn't be touching people's hands anymore, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. Don't want to catch anything these days. All right, last thing WWE related I wanted to mention with you is Bray Wyatt against John Cena. You're kind of alluding into earlier with the people complaining about Goldberg. I guess we could tie in Goldberg and Reigns in this as well, but you're mentioning how people are in their feelings over Goldberg, quote unquote, bearing the Fiend, which is I thought was absolutely a ridiculous take. But because honestly, since Bray's won the championship, when has he really put an emphasis on him being the champion?
Never.
As opposed to trying to get revenge and receipts on Daniel Bryan for messing up the Wyatt family. Kind of the same thing that's going on right here with John Cena. What would be the better scenario? Bray Wyatt losing to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania and people being upset about that, or Bray Wyatt being John Cena at a WrestleMania?
Yeah, there's so much to talk about. Obviously, I haven't been in podcasting for a couple of years, so I have a lot of different opinions, and I'm happy you brought this up because it's current, and it kind of infuriated me a lot. I think that, like I said earlier, a lot of times people need to look at the big picture with this kind of thing, and when Goldberg beat Bray Wyatt the way he did, it was the same way he beat Brock Lesnar. And that's how Goldberg beats guys. That's his whole spiel. Goldberg doesn't go out there and put on 25-minute matches.
Right.
Match at WrestleMania 31, 33 was the best of his career with Brock Lesnar. But he caught Brock by surprise. He was the one to beat Brock. And I was at Survivor Series in Toronto, and the whole crowd was shocked. I kind of figured when Goldberg came back that it might have just been for the Saudi Arabian thing and he was going to go away. But for me, facing John Cena at WrestleMania, beating John Cena at WrestleMania, who is, like I said, Hollywood star, one of the greatest of all time. He's coming back to wrestle you. And also, it kind of closes their whole storyline arc from a couple years ago and really will cement Bray Wyatt as the guy. There's more people that don't watch WWE that are going to be like, wow, who's this Bray Wyatt guy? He beat John Cena, who I know from, Fast and Furious or whatever, versus, oh, what's this crazy, scary Fiend thing? And this guy, Roman Reigns, beat him at WrestleMania. Cool. It does more for Bray as a character. And then after WrestleMania, WWE can then have Roman and Bray have a real program for a couple months versus just doing a blow up for WrestleMania because that's kind of where it was going. And I also, people are going to, hate that I said this, but I'm excited for Roman and Goldberg. I really am. It's a match that I've always wanted to see, the Spear versus the Spear. There's so many matches at Mania, and, it's the Super Bowl of wrestling. It's a national holiday for us wrestling fans every year. And I would just hate to see people get upset about one thing. And, the next day, everybody forgot about Bray Wyatt losing to Goldberg because it happened in 2 seconds. And one more thing before I hand it off to you. Bray Wyatt did stand up as soon as Goldberg pinned him. And he just that doesn't happen to everybody. They were not just saying, okay, oh, Bray, I'm gonna have you get squashed. And he didn't get squashed. He'll be fine. It's really not that big of a deal. At the end of the day, WrestleMania is about marquee matches and selling money and bringing casual fans in. And I think WWE did the best they could do with the talent they have in that situation with those four.
Well, we talked about this a lot in the past when it comes to like booking and, you know, having it. Sometimes you're kind of in a no-win scenario. It's kind of like an end to the mean type of thing. No, let me rephrase it. A means to end. There you go. That's what I was going for. Look at this. Like I hope Roman has a chance to actually talk about why he wants to be next. Like I really want Roman to have an opportunity to just cut a one promo, not be interrupted by Corbin or something like that. Like I want Roman to speak from the heart because this is the first time he's actually been vying for this championship since he came back from leukemia about a year and a half ago, right? Like he fought Drew McIntyre. Think about how crazy this past series went by. Roman Reigns was in a mid-card match with Drew McIntyre coming off leukemia. If it's still everything about being handed to Roman, Roman would just been going for the title that year. You wouldn't even have Kofi Mania. It would have been Roman Reigns against Daniel Bryan at last year's WrestleMania. So to add some context here, like I want to know why is he going for it now? And you know, when I look at the Fiend, going back to what I was saying earlier, I never thought the Fiend needed the title. I don't think Goldberg needs the title, but if that was the business decision that they wanted to go with, I think you're getting better profit by having Roman Reigns be a WCW legend for a title and also having Bray Wyatt beat John Cena on a major stage. So it's kind of a double positive if you actually look at it from a big term perspective, because how many times we talk about, oh my God, the older guys beat the younger guys at all these major shows. Well, here's an opportunity to actually have two guys win a match like that, you know?
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up because I didn't look at it from that perspective when I was talking a second ago. But yeah, I mean, everybody that was saying on Twitter, oh, Bray Wyatt got buried, blah, blah. All right, well, WrestleMania, both guys are going over, and those are the two guys are going to carry the company for years. So it does make sense. And I love your point about going in depth with Roman and his character. When WWE plays up to reality, we used to have the whole reality era. I think that storylines are at their highest. I mean, for example, there's nobody that loved hearing AJ Styles bring out Michelle McCool this week than me. I want whoever fights Brock Lesnar to bring up Sable, because I know for a fact that if they did, Brock would legit get mad. But it's that realism aspect that when you do that makes storylines that much better and that much juicier to watch.
Right.
And I also do hope, like you said, that Roman. Why do I want to face Goldberg? Why am I back? Why does this mean so much to me? And I know he can do it. And also, Roman Reigns got asked a question at the press event for WrestleMania 37. Oh, who do I want to face? I don't want to face Goldberg because, I want to face the guys that are here now. They should play up to that. Why can't I wrestle anymore? And I think that it's one thing to have a graphic of two guys like Goldberg and Roman Reigns on the screen. It's another thing to take that story and give it more layers. And I hope you do what you said.
Before we go into the Elimination Chamber, I just wanted to get your thoughts really quick with the announcement with WrestleMania being in LA next year. You gonna go to that? Because I was looking at these new stadiums that they got for the Raiders and the Rams next year. Those suckers are not only they're huge, they're just gonna be like awesome, like piece.
Yeah, for the NFL this year to open up two brand new stadiums that are magnificent is going to be pretty amazing. The whole Raiders thing for a second, I think it's awesome. Their GM is Mike Mayock and John Gruden out in Vegas. But yeah, I mean, I think that WWE has been planning this for a long time, WrestleMania in LA. I think that it was a part of their strategy to go with Fox. And I really think they're going to focus on, getting more casual fans, obviously increasing revenue. And really having the product translate more mainstream than it has in a culmination at WrestleMania 37, because they are in LA. This is the first time this has happened pretty much ever where for a fact it's going to be the talk of the town that night. Celebrities are going to be there. I will be shocked if The Rock doesn't wrestle at WrestleMania 37. Shocked. And if he does wrestle, I would like to see him face Brock Lesnar and not Roman Reigns.
Hey, we're in a new decade, and I made a promise to myself that I'm going to every WrestleMania until I get signed, and I'm actually calling a WrestleMania. This is my trip where I get out of the city. I'm making this happen. I'm going to each WrestleMania, so I definitely got to go out to LA. I've never been out to LA. I've been to San Jose before, but I've never been out to the LA area. So,
I've only done Disneyland in LA and Anaheim, not really LA in general, but you have to understand WWE is going to make that a major event, and there's going to be stuff going on all week, and it's not just LA, it's Malibu and Orange County, and
right.
They'll do a great job. I love to go back to Mania. I had the time of my life in Mania 32 with Agab and JJ, doing the live show there, and then obviously NAI Mania when I went down with the guys at 33, and it was in Orlando. We had the hardcore title, and me and you watched the show together and recorded live. That was a lot of fun. Haven't been able to make it the last couple of years, but any fan that has not been to WrestleMania, I highly suggest you go because it's just there's not a lot of words to describe it. For me, when it came to podcasting and wrestling, that's really important. And one of the best parts, in my opinion, of this whole thing is just, wrestling brings people together. And there's a lot of negativity on wrestling Twitter and with whatever people watch. But at the end of the day, there's millions of people, or not millions, tons of people going to WrestleMania because they love wrestling. And that togetherness is something I think that, us as wrestling fans, we forget about when we're criticizing certain people and coming at people on Twitter, and something we should remember and just enjoy, the event when it comes to something like WrestleMania.
The great part about pro wrestling is that it brings people together under any circumstances. And for example, this podcast day, like we're brought back together. We're all on good pages now, and we're all having fun. So that's something I'm very happy and appreciative for the fact that we're back to doing this again together, and we're having a good time, and we're talking about something that we love. And it's good to shoot the shit because I was tired of hearing my voice every single week, so I'll be honest with you guys. But
it's hard doing a podcast by yourself. It really is. I've done it before. You have to plan for it. But yeah, I mean, it's surreal being back on air. It's awesome being back with you and shooting the shit. I mean, me and you talk about this a lot, and we have before that. When we used to record, and even today, we talked for 45 minutes before we even started. And it's all about the relationships and stuff. And I had a lot of fun with you and Rob and Derek and Adam Bless. Couple years in the pipe bomb, and I honestly really at least the last couple of months and year, I've really been itching to get back. I do miss it a lot. So at the end of the day, I just enjoyed meeting people and just talking about wrestling. Mm-hmm. The best times were just me laughing at Derek on air, Derek spilling something, going at him, and then afterwards laughing about it, and then watching people listen to it and enjoy it. That just makes you feel really good.
Right. Is there anything you'd like to say to Brother Carter or B-Rob while we're on here?
Oh, man. B-Rob, you're absolutely hilarious. I can't tell you how many times I was sitting right over here and had to cover my mouth, had to try and mumble up words. You're a great producer. You're a great guy. And I hope that we get to do a show together soon. Definitely want to hook up with you in Houston at some point. And to Derek, I've known Derek since I started with this through Wrestling Rumors. Met up with Derek at WrestleMania 32 and met his brother like you have as well. And Derek's a great guy. He's a great professor. Me and Derek have this very unique chemistry where we're back and forth. It's great radio, and it's something special when we're all on air together. And like I said, it's crazy how many people that I've met and friendships I've made through this, just coming in as a wrestling fan, wanting to do a podcast because I love wrestling, to look at it years later and to be on air with you and to meet guys like Derek and Rob and Danny I guys has been amazing. And like I said multiple times, I am waiting for the opportunity to get back on air with Derek and shoot the shit because I know it's just going to be a lot of fun.
I want to thank a lot of our supporters and good brothers and sisters. I really don't want to say fans because I don't believe it.
Yeah, that makes it weird.
We're good brothers and good sisters. So anybody that took the time to listen or watch our shows, whether it was warm up or the pipe bomb, I want to thank you guys because you guys really made it worth our time. And I'll be honest, the fact that 4 years later I'm still doing this particular show when it was originally called the Josh Lopez Wrestling Podcast, it's a lot of staying power, and it's thanks to a lot of you guys who've been consistent and been big advocates of myself. And I'll admit it, I'm my own worst enemy, and there's a lot of times I doubt myself, and wrongly so. And you guys push me forward and continue to do this. So I thank you guys, whether it's starting from the pipe bomb through this. We appreciate the support, and we're going to get to your questions at the end of the podcast. You know, we're just talking about attending events. You just went to the Elimination Chamber this past Sunday at the Wells Fargo Center. I'm sure you've seen your good pay-per-views, and I'm sure you've seen your bad pay-per-views. I think you tried. I'm sure you're still trying to get Battleground 2017 out. So, just overall, Rick, we don't have to spend too much time on this, but just overall, how's your experience at the Elimination Chamber? What did you enjoy about the show? Did you like the show overall, though?
Just really quick before we get into that, I want to kind of tail off what you just said before, and also thank everybody for all the support and stuff. It was, like I said on Twitter earlier, it was just so amazing to get all the questions that we did. To have people like LA or Colin or Steve come up to your WrestleMania and say, "I love the show. Love to meet you." At Elimination Chamber, we hooked up with one of our friends that we ironically met in Toronto. Two of my good buddies. We always go to shows together at a random dive bar. By chance, that we found out he loved wrestling. We found out he was from Philly, big Philly sports fan, and connected immediately. And then, a couple years later, we're meeting up with them again, just like we're doing this. So that aspect, I know we said it a lot, does make wrestling special, and I think that people do need to remember that and recognize that, as well as the fandom part of it when they're trying to be negative. But anyway, in terms of Elimination Chamber, I hadn't been to a WWE show since, I think it might have been Battleground, maybe not. But that, you took the words out of my mouth. That pay-per-view, awful. The whole Jinder Mahal thing was bad, and just the show wasn't that great. I actually sat with Nick Giacomo, but the Chamber was fun. Always a great time to go to Xfinity Live before. If people don't know, in Philadelphia, it's unique. There's this bar restaurant complex right in the center of all the stadiums, so it doesn't matter what event's going on, people go there before. And people they're playing wrestling music over the loudspeaker, having contests. I tried my first Stone Cold IPA, which I marked out. I was like, "Oh my God, you have this? Can I try it?" Didn't even care about the whole coronavirus thing. I just took the guy's beer. It doesn't matter. It was worth it. In terms of the show, I enjoyed it. It was really cool to see the Elimination Chamber structure live. I've seen the Rumble. I've seen WrestleMania and SummerSlam. It was one of the only things I haven't seen. The spot in the tag team match was awesome. I was one of the only people in the arena who stood up and cheered loud for Shayna Baszler. I really love watching her live, and it was my first time actually seeing her do her thing in the ring. Other than that, the show was kind of forgetful. There was some good wrestling, but some guys weren't over and stuff. It is a little bit unfortunate that we probably would have seen 2 title matches or 3 title matches in Philadelphia, and really setting that up towards WrestleMania versus all the people in Saudi Arabia got to see that, and it made the show feel not as important. Probably the most least important go home WrestleMania show that I've ever seen, just because there wasn't a lot going on. Everybody knew that Shayna was going to win. The whole Roman thing happened where he just challenged Goldberg. They completely scrapped the match. I was surprised there wasn't some sort of setup for a Mania match. Maybe do that on TV.
Right.
But it was worth going to. It's always fun going to events, and Philly's a great crowd. But in general, in terms of the show, in my honest opinion, I thought it left a lot to be desired.
Honestly, for me, I wasn't really expecting this show to be a home run, but I'll give WWE credit for this with the fact that they didn't have all the major top stars. You didn't have Randy Orton come out and cut a promo and have that Edge moment that we saw at Raw on that particular show. I'm sure for you selfishly, it would be awesome to see that in Philly. I'm sure that we got an amazing reaction from the audience.
It was a selfish comment, but just in years past, Brock Lesnar was on Fastlane. That's just kind of my point.
No, I totally get what you're saying. My favorite point is I thought it was cool for the fact that a lot of these stars that were on this show this past Sunday are probably not going to have a lot of time on WrestleMania. So for them, that's probably their WrestleMania. If you look at a guy like Lindsay Dorado who did that freaking shooting star press off the chamber, which is insane.
They did make the right choice in adding that match because you knew when that match was announced they were going to do great things in the ring.
What? By the way, I gotta get your thoughts on this. What do you think about the stuff with Mandy Rose and Otis? Because I think it's hilarious.
It's hilarious, and it's probably the most popular story on SmackDown from a fan perspective. People talk about it on Twitter, and like everybody loves to identify with the chubbier guy that goes after the girl and gets the girl. We love those kind of stories,
right?
And it's those kind of stories that resonate with people, that get people to tune in. And I'm happy that WWE went that route because I thought that it was just like a little thing backstage. It wasn't going to be an actual story, but I'm happy they ran with it, and we'll see where it goes. But it's supposedly leading to a WrestleMania match for him.
How about that spot where he fell out of the chamber, man? He had some speed and velocity on that run. Jeez.
He's got so much charisma. He's so entertaining.
They're so underrated in the ring, man. It's insane.
Yeah, for him to do the things he does at that size is crazy. And I also was just going to say that I never thought that he would have this kind of charisma, and that it would almost remind me of an Edge and Christian, maybe not both of them, but just the aspect of the tag team. That you would never think heavy machinery that this would ever happen, but it worked out, and I'm happy that Otis's charisma shined through.
Let me mention this really quick before we talk about Shane Baszler because I want to talk about that really quick. I'm always happy to see The Undertaker. You were mentioning earlier about the awesome AJ Styles promo we saw the other night on Monday Night Raw. Talk about just hitting topics that I'm sure made B-Rob blush because everything that AJ said on that show, and I'm sure Rob's listening to this right now, he's getting a chunk out of this, is the same exact thing Rob said. And me and him went back and forth, just fun, obviously, on the pipe bomb. We go back and forth about it, how he always says the Undertaker needs to retire, needs to go the fuck home, all that stuff. And I would always disagree because I was biased, and Undertaker is my favorite wrestler, so obviously I'm always going to be excited to see him there. And don't get me wrong, from a stylistic standpoint and where wrestling is right now, and obviously you can't have 25-minute barn burners like he did with Shawn Michaels and Triple H anymore, but I was there from the moment in WrestleMania 34 we had with John Cena, where John Cena was calling him out, talking about Michelle McCool, and then they had like a 5-minute thing. The only reason I was bummed out with that because I thought that match should have went a little longer than what it was on that particular show. You know what I mean? I thought they could have told a really good story with Undertaker, John Cena, but for whatever reason, they waited for the last minute for him to show up. So that
was really bizarre. Not to cut you off, but that was completely bizarre. That people wanted that match for a long time, and I don't know whether like Taker didn't have the dates or he was hurt or it was just that was very, very weird. Also, side note on that is that there are rumors that Taker was going to come out as American Badass.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Apparently, Kid Rock said something about Trump or some crazy stuff at the Hall of Fame, so they scrapped the whole thing.
Yeah.
And this is a very unpopular opinion. I know you've heard it before from me, but I actually prefer American Badass Mark Calloway to the actual Undertaker. There is nothing like hearing the gong or the entrance live like we were together at WrestleMania 33, but it is pretty special. And in terms of the Undertaker, he's a living legend, and as long as he can continue to go in the ring and continue to be a draw and people want to see him, I've got no issue with him coming back. I just want to make sure he's working with a guy that is going to complement his skills and not make him do too much. Because obviously, he knows everything. He's one of the greatest wrestlers of all time.
Right.
But physically, when you get older, obviously things change a lot. And I think with AJ, it's going to be a great match. And I really, really love how WWE has taken this story and made it really personal. And it's not something I thought would happen. I thought that we'd just get, boo-hoo, I'm AJ Styles, Undertaker cost me a match. Let's fight at WrestleMania. The crowd chants yes, and that's it. But there's a lot more depth to the story. and I love that about it.
I totally agree with you with that. And here's the thing. As opposed to what happened with John Cena, I think there could be some more legs under the story. And I get it. On paper, it'd be kind of silly. Oh, really? The Undertaker needs the contract signing segment. But, the guy was talking shit about your wife. Like, you probably would want to hear what Undertaker has to say back, So they advertise him. He's going to be at Raw this Monday in Pittsburgh. And I don't know. Maybe it's just me wishfully thinking, but I think maybe Undertaker has something to prove at this year's WrestleMania, just from a performance standpoint. Not saying that he needs to win or anything like that. Just from an overall performance standpoint, people saying, "Oh, you're too old, you're broken down, you need to retire." Maybe he has something out to prove people wrong, and that kind of gets me excited a little bit.
No, you are 100% spot on. I think he does have something to prove. I think that obviously the whole Goldberg match, people talked about it on Twitter. People have a lot of opinions about the streak ending, about Taker coming back, and I think this is Taker's opportunity. Not that he has to prove anything, like you said, but to work with a guy like AJ Styles, who many consider to be the best in the business today, period, and to be able to put on a great match. I'm sure Taker takes that personally. I know he loves the business and do anything for it. So that was a great take, and I think you're 100% right.
And sooner or later, we got to look at this with some context. Isn't it crazy that a TNA guy is going to have a WrestleMania match with The Undertaker?
You'll never hear that from WWE, though. That doesn't exist.
No, that's a good point. It's funny because Jeff Jarrett's an agent now.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
That's
and
cool.
too. They got a lot of former TNA guys as backstage agents right now, which is kind of interesting.
They raided Dixie's Coop a couple years ago, and that's what pretty much after AJ left, the company was definitely done. Whether they're on TV now or not, it's not necessarily relevant. And when I did that, I was like, when I was watching Ruthless Aggression, to see the Impact tapes there and to acknowledge it, I was pretty surprised. I know Cena did like 10 years ago, but for the longest time, WWE wouldn't mention TNA in fear people would go watch it, but that wasn't going to happen anyway. It's just funny.
Right. Man, I'm excited for this Raw on Monday. Obviously, we're 3 weeks out from WrestleMania. I got a little news to share with everybody. Obviously, everybody knows what's going on with the coronavirus that's sweeping the nation. I saw the news on Twitter. They put it out on Twitter that the city of Tampa hasn't decided to cancel WrestleMania yet. They're waiting for next Thursday for a final decision. So as of right now, WrestleMania is not canceled. I had my doubts and skepticisms. I'm not gonna lie. We always keep it 100 on this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna come on here and be oblivious and just thump my nose at this thing. But there's other examples to understand of the severity of this issue. Okay, you canceled the NBA suspended their season. NHL just suspended their season. All the NCAA men's and female basketball tournaments got suspended and put on hold for this virus. Why are people still at work? That's why I want to know. I want to know what the severity of this issue is. And with the fact this is so fluid, I'm not going to come on here and insult people's intelligence where I can say, oh, this thing is not going to last long. I don't know how long this thing is going to be. Obviously, the Zika virus was kind of like the big talking virus a couple years ago. That went away too. So part of me, I'm not intentionally trying to thump my nose at this coronavirus, but I have my questions. You have people working at construction areas. You have people working at produce stores and meat shops with dead animals, slaughterhouses. You have policemen at prison guards. You don't think there's a lot of bacteria there?
Yeah. It's crazy, man. I never would have expected something like this to happen. It's never happened before in my entire life. Obviously, the health and safety of everybody is really important, but there's been a lot of confusing messages, and this is not a political statement at all. Just in terms of how severe this is, in terms of what the world is saying, in terms of, how things are in the United States. And like you said, I mean, I just went out for some errands like before we recorded the show, and I disinfected, the things that I bought when I was out, because I just don't want to get it at this point.
Right.
For me personally, last night, the longest time I was like, oh, it's gonna pass. It's gonna pass. I'm younger. And then when the NBA suspended the season and you saw all the different sports leagues, it was like a domino effect throughout the day. Some guy tweeted all the things that happened. It was so long I had to squint to read it. Just in that day, not even counting the NBA, it just seems like such a fluid situation. And you're right. I have no idea why people are still at work. I don't know why. But then again, if everybody goes home, then how are people going to eat? People still have to work. Some people still have to work at a certain point, or society's going to kind of be in a panic, and it already is. It's crazy. I really, really hope things change, but never in my life did I ever think that I would see professional sports leagues suspend their seasons for something like this. So it has to be that severe where, billionaires are willing to give up, their money and stuff to, keep people safe and so they don't get sick.
And if there's anybody that knows about working environments when it comes to bacteria, is me, because I am assistant manager at a tattoo shop with my uncle, and I am charge of cleaning all the tubes that we use for the shop. I put all the tubes in the ultrasound machine.
Yeah.
I have to wear black latex gloves when I put bleach around the tube so I can get all the ink and blood out of it. Trust me, anybody that should be susceptible to this stuff is me, because I work in that environment. But I haven't got a word from my uncle about it being a dangerous place for me to work at. And like, I just want to know when the solution is going to come to this, because just I wouldn't say overreacting, but just canceling every single thing, but not canceling other stuff, just kind of sends a bad message in a way. This is such a epidemic that's going to paralyze everybody. Just shut everything down.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said to you before we started recording, like, at this point, if like people are like, they're closing schools and leagues are closing, and let's just all go home for 2 weeks and quarantine and try and make this better rather than kind of messing around with it. It's a really scary time. Like I said, I never thought this would ever happen before. And I mean, it sucks because I'm so passionate about the things that I love. I'm extremely passionate about wrestling. I love hockey. I love football. I love my teams. And, there's no one that's more disappointed than me that the Flyer season has to stop right now. And they're having the best season they've had in a long time. It's the best Flyers team I've ever seen. But health and safety is obviously important. I just hope that we kind of curb this situation and it goes away. But it's also sobering, and it really does, make you take a step back and really appreciate what's important. And, I think at the end of the day, there's going to be some deaths and, things that have happened. But I think that if we take a step back as a country like this, it might end up being a positive.
Right.
And I hope people don't take that the wrong way, obviously.
Right.
But just for everybody in this country to take a step back and get a new perspective on things and kind of restart after that, I think it could be very beneficial for everybody.
And of course, I want everybody to be out there and look out for their health more than anything that's more important. So, also, we'll see what happens in the coming weeks, whether they make changes for WrestleMania or not. But I always say when stuff like this happens, you just got to keep pushing forward until something that really needs to get your attention. Then we'll take it from that and then push forward as well. All right, before we get to the 3 count, I got to know, how is it feeling the reaction towards Shayna Baszler at the end of the Elimination? Because my point of view, transcribing the show, from a historical standpoint, not only has it been the first time where a wrestler eliminated everybody in the chamber, but it's also the first time that somebody eliminated 5 people via submission. That's never happened before. So, what was your thoughts on how Shayna was portrayed at the chamber this past Sunday?
I think that all the rumors about, Vince is not happy with Shayna, blah, blah. I think that Shayna is the only logical opponent for Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. WWE has been telling this story for a very long time, ever since Shayna came in the company, she pretty much dominated. She dominated NXT. And for me, with Shayna as a fan and also watching her, just as, podcaster in general, when Shayna Baszler enters the room, the whole mood changes 100%, because she's believable. She would, I'm scared of her. Like, she would destroy me or anybody. And WWE was able to take that character, that cage fighter, and that ruthlessness and that passion, and turn it into something that, is believable in WWE sense, and also gives her, obviously, her prowess for being a great MMA fighter. I thought that the way the match was booked was great. No one can sit here and tell me that, oh, it should be Asuka, it should be Liv Morgan. I mean, I like Liv Morgan, but Liv Morgan and Becky Lynch is not a WrestleMania match, and I'm sorry. It's just the truth. And we've seen Asuka, and I'm happy that WWE had Shayna come in and just destroy everybody, because she, like she said before the match, I am a trained cage fighter. This is my dojo. If they booked her any other way where she, even remotely was going to lose, I think it might have hurt her after she talked like that. So I loved it. I really enjoyed the song. I enjoy her whole presentation as a character. And I think she's going to be a real asset for the company and the whole women's division, and just in general moving forward. I really like Shayna Baszler a lot, and I think a lot of people would be kind of surprised by that, considering, I love Sasha Banks. She's just different, but the whole presentation just works for me.
All right, folks, the time you've been waiting for. This hasn't happened in 2.5 years.
Holy crap.
First, the two segments that we would close the pipe on would be the 3 count and the go the fuck home segment. So we're going to start off with the 3 count. These are times where you send us questions about anything pro wrestling, and we talk about it and answer your questions. So, Matt, the floor is yours.
I missed doing the intro. You just did it. It was always so much fun. The 3 count for me was just a testament to, I guess, how the show resonated with people. And when I started doing this, I really wanted to really give fans a voice. And it was just a random idea I had for the WR pod that turned into basically the whole show. We got so many questions, and not to toot our own horn, that it did take over the show. And it gave us a unique format in where, we could have questions about music, questions about historical wrestling, or just booking ideas, and then we get off on tangents about different things. It all worked out well, and I really appreciate every single person that ever sent us a question on the 3 count. It's something that I believe in, and something that I really, really enjoy. So with that being said, guys, it's time for your questions. First question.
3 count.
Oh yeah, we had the intro. That was awesome. First question is going to come from our boy, formerly at Psycho Nagiri Nate. I like the new handle, Nate. My day's been made. The pipe bomb is back. Blah blah. Is there anything WWE can do to make you more excited this year for WrestleMania?
I wouldn't say I'm not excited for WrestleMania. I mean, just looking at the matches on paper, they're all WrestleMania quality, in my opinion. Now, what you want to see is the main event, and the marquee main match could be subjective, but as we were talking about earlier, I'm really excited for Drew McIntyre and Brock Lesnar. I just think this should be an interesting contest. Whether that closes out the show or not, I don't know. Look, at Brock started WrestleMania last year, so it's not really a guarantee that's going to be the main event. We talked about Edge and Randy Orton. Obviously, the fan of me is very excited to see that match in person. You got Undertaker and AJ Styles. So I'm just curious to see what they do with the mid-card matches. That's what has my attention. I want to know what the tag matches are. I want to know if Aleister Black fights Andrade for the U.S. title. That's something that I want to look into. And if they do a multi-men match for the Intercontinental Championship for the SmackDown side, possibly a ladder match. I know it's kind of predictable to say, oh, just have a ladder match for the IC title, but that's been kind of a WrestleMania tradition, so I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely all good answers. I think, unlike years past, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of things WWE can do to make me more excited for WrestleMania. Obviously the fan in me would love to see something, but I also don't want to see that something if it's going to be rushed and they're not going to have the time to do it. So, I mean, I love the Edge and Randy Orton match. Like I said, watching Edge wrestle his first match back is going to be a fun experience for me. I also think that, Shayna Baszler is going to beat Becky Lynch. That's going to be kind of passing the torch.
Mm-hmm.
Goes away for a little bit. There's really, honestly, Nate, you saw me. There's not a lot of things WWE can do to make me more excited about WrestleMania. I think the card is solid. The title matches are solid. You got, Bray Wyatt and John Cena. There's kind of a mix of young and old. And you will, like you said, have your IC title match and, Otis versus Dolph Ziggler. Yeah, but I think other than Hulk Hogan coming back and doing something crazy or something out of the ordinary, maybe not Hulk Hogan. I think that WWE's done a really good job of booking this year's WrestleMania. And I think that people should give the company credit for that because they often don't get credit. And I think this year's card was booked well.
Are you surprised with the lack of CM Punk chance with the fact that he just showed up on backstage?
I'm not surprised because he already has returned in a way. For the longest time, we had heard CM Punk talk about wrestling in 5 years, but now he's on backstage. It's been really cool to see his perspective is not necessarily watching the product ever since he's left,
right?
And on new performers like on Sasha, he loves Keith Lee. I'm not surprised, but I also think that it's a good thing that people aren't chanting CM Punk because when he does wrestle again for WWE, it'll be a little bit more of a surprise than if they were chanting for him.
I agree. I got a personal 3-guy question of my own, but I'm going to say that later. Keep going.
All right, so Nate has another one. Thoughts on Shayna's main roster outing so far?
I thought it was good. I thought her first outing with the Survivor Series, obviously she won the match, so it was cool for her. She got that moment. But I think a lot of people were going into that event expecting Ronda Rousey to come back, so it kind of took away from what Shayna Baszler and her impact for that show. I did not think match-wise it was the right choice to have Bayley dominate the majority of that triple threat match. I don't know why Becky was sleeping most of the time during that match. The heat was there between Becky and Shayna, and that was the time where Bayley just got the title back, if I'm not mistaken, for the SmackDown Women's title. So
yeah,
since then she's done a good job. Obviously, she didn't win the Royal Rumble. I think people were kind of surprised with that, with Charlotte winning. I know that made Derek very happy, but obviously had a different reason where Charlotte, for the first time ever, the NXT Women's title is going to be defended at WrestleMania, which is pretty cool. But as far as Shayna Baszler is concerned, I think she's done a good job. I know some people kind of freaked out when she did the whole biting of the neck thing, and people just automatically assumed she was going to be a vampire. I like the Twilight movies. Judge me. But I think she's done a good job, and I hope she does beat Becky Lynch at WrestleMania.
Yeah, you brought up a lot there. Like I said, a few minutes ago, I love Shayna Baszler. I think she's believable. I think she's the perfect opponent for Becky Lynch. There's some real heat there. If I'm being honest, and I don't think this is Becky Lynch's fault, it's very tough for somebody to go from, the rise that she went to WrestleMania last year, to main eventing, to winning both titles. Ever since WrestleMania, it hasn't been the same. It's like I said, it's not necessarily her fault. It's almost like the whole Daniel Bryan thing where he wins. What do you do next? The Lacey feud was awful. And Natty's obviously a great worker, great person, but it hasn't been the same Becky. I think she's been trying to get that spark back. And I think Shayna is the perfect person to bring that spark and that fire out of Becky Lynch.
Right.
You brought up the Charlotte Flair winning the Rumble thing, and because I'm sure you can imagine my reaction to that. And I'm sitting here like telling people not to be negative and to trust the process and watch and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And needless to say, I was livid. I was so pissed, just because when I was thinking about it at the time, and it's a good example for myself, I was like, okay, so Charlotte Flair's won everything. She's the greatest of all time.
Right.
Why does she need to win the Rumble? Why did she's already faced Becky Lynch last year, was the women's feud. pretty much of the year. She's already, won all these titles. She's not going to go face Bayley. They had a match on SmackDown. So what is Charlotte going to do? Why does she need to win? I also was, expecting Shayna to win. There's also rumblings that Sasha was going to win too. When she didn't come out, I was surprised. I learned afterwards she was hurt, which that's fine. But I'm happy to say that I ate my own words. I'm extremely excited for this match at WrestleMania. And I'm so happy that Rhea Ripley gets to be featured because she's grown so much. It's crazy to think that she's come in WWE and how she came in, completely changed her look, found herself. People forget that she's very, very young. I think she's like around 20, 21, 22, 23. Like she's not old. She's got a long time coming, but I think that her and Charlotte stylistically are going to be a good match. Mm-hmm. And I'm not really sure who's going to win. Josh, who do you think wins that match?
I think Rhea does. I do. Here's the thing with Charlotte, though. Once you get her in like a Raw or SmackDown, like some people could kind of drop their shoulders, like, "Oh man, we're gonna get Charlotte Becky for a gazillion times." Or she goes back to SmackDown, it's gonna be her and Bayley or her and Sasha for another gazillion times. It's kind of a tough situation for Charlotte to be in. And we also have to have some context with the fact that she's in her mid-30s now. She started wrestling late. Let's not forget that, folks. So, I think we should just appreciate for what she's putting in right now, because I don't know if Charlotte's going to be here 5 to 10 years from now, as far as a wrestler is concerned, But I can see Rhea Ripley winning. I don't think this is a Asuka type of moment where Asuka's getting really hot going into WrestleMania and then she loses her streak to Charlotte. By the way, I was there for that match in New Orleans. That was one of the best women matches I ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. Talk about the debate. I was Sasha, Derek was Charlotte. It's been well documented. But look, Charlotte is a great performer. She comes from Ric Flair. I respect the hell out of her. She's a great asset to the division and to the company when it comes to mainstream and just in general. I do like Charlotte. It's just when that kind of decision happens and you're in a vacuum, you don't understand what's going on. It does become tough, but I agree with you. I don't necessarily see how. I mean, Charlotte could fit in NXT. My idea once this happened and once the rumors came out that she was going to face Rhea Ripley is that Charlotte wins at WrestleMania and they put her in that division, which, like I said, in my opinion, is the best women's division in the world with right. Talent, and she gives rubs to Bianca and Mia Yim and Dakota Kai and Candice LeRae, which I would love to see that because let's be honest, there's not really much for Charlotte to do on the main roster or who to face. You could have her face Sasha again or have her face Bayley as a heel, but Charlotte's not even on one side of the coin, face or heel. She's just Charlotte Flair. So it would be something new for her to do to go to NXT. Maybe Rhea Ripley comes up and that's why they're doing it, but at the same time, it would be nice to see Rhea get, beat Charlotte at WrestleMania because at the end of the day, if you're a women's wrestler, beating Charlotte Flair is probably the best win you can have in terms of, prestige and being a great wrestler in the business right now. So,
you know what I need?
What?
I need more Alexa Bliss.
I do too. I do too, and I'm not kidding.
Shout out to Bill Neville, by the way.
Yeah, no, seriously. There's a lot of frustration on my part for years about Alexa. But she is an amazing actress. I love her Nikki Cross. I thought that it was going to be a really quick thing where like she turns on Nikki and it's this dumb match a couple pay-per-views later, but the whole coffee thing is funny. She's perfect to host a show. And I think what they're doing with Alexa right now is absolutely perfect. So that might shock a lot of people, including King and Derek, but I love what Alexa's doing right now.
All right, let's go back to the 3-count questions.
This is what happens, 3 count. Yes. All right. Next question is from our man B-Rob at 3R Show. Just messing around, it'll happen. Real question though. Will NXT TakeOver Tampa suffer without its women's championship match, or will the champ pull double duty?
I say no because it's very all-encompassing, this upcoming trip to Tampa Bay, because you look at history, there's always been a big history of pro wrestling in Tampa Bay, but also a lot of FCW and the stars you see today started in Tampa, and they just showed that really cool FCW special they just put on the network. And I think that them having a title match on WrestleMania is a big thing for that brand. Mm-hmm. So the fact you have an opportunity on a takeover to showcase how much depth is already in that NXT Women's Division, I think it's pretty cool. You already got Tegan Knox, you got you have, I'm trying to remember who else qualified for these matches. Oh, Chelsea Green, the Robert Stone brand, which I think is pretty funny.
It's really funny. I like it.
Yeah, and you got me and him added to that match as well. So you have a 6-woman ladder match at Takeover. I don't think it affects it at all, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that putting Rhea Ripley and Charlotte and putting the NXT title on WrestleMania, which it's the first time it's ever happened, man or woman, any title. So right. It says a lot about where they think NXT is going, what they think of Rhea Ripley to put her with Charlotte, and I'm really happy that match is happening. I would much rather see a 6-woman ladder match than watch Rhea Ripley just beat Bianca Belair in a match that everybody won. But in reality, Bianca's probably not going to win because it's not her necessarily time yet. So I can't wait to see these ladies tear the house down. I've never been invested in multiple characters in the women's division like I am now with NXT. So I think it's going to be awesome. And Mia Yim's really cool too. I just think that the characters they have are all so unique, and they're true to their personalities and to how they are as performers. So it's awesome. If anybody's not seen NXT Women's Division, definitely check it out. They teach AEW lessons every single week. It's not to ramble, but it just for me, my biggest issue with AEW is that they nothing against Riho and Nyla Rose and a few other ladies, but it's just not on par. And if you want to compete with WWE, you have to be on par and even seem like you're on par. It just doesn't seem like it's a priority, or it was a priority from the start. So,
right. Any more questions we have? How many more?
We got one more from Mike.
Okay.
Old friend Mike. Mike at Main Event Swerve. If WrestleMania was to be postponed, what would be the best time and way to make it happen later? Assuming most pay-per-views would still take place in order. Let me read that again. If WrestleMania was to be postponed, what would be the best time and way to make it happen later? Assuming most pay-per-views would still take place in order. I think that this question for me is the biggest burning question in the air in terms of them postponing WrestleMania. So, do some of the matches happen on Raw? Do they happen on SmackDown? Because you can't just stop a feud in wrestling like that. It's just WWE is in very uncharted territory. Obviously, we're not going to get Goldberg and Roman Reigns at Raw, but we could get Becky Lynch and Shayna Baszler on Raw. And then how does that change WrestleMania if it's in June or July? Obviously, for your sake, I hope it's not postponed. If it doesn't make sense and the coronavirus continues to spread, they have to postpone it. That's fine. I'm happy they're not going to cancel it. It will be kind of cool to see WrestleMania in a different month, at a different time. I'm sure WWE will do their best to embrace it. But if I were calling the shots and you had to postpone it, I would probably blow out a few feuds and maybe make some new ones going into the new WrestleMania. I just think it just puts you in such a bind because you're building towards these stories and the culmination. Not only through the Rumble season, but from last WrestleMania and even before that with Cena and Bray Wyatt.
Right.
How does that change if you change the date and Bray Wyatt has to do another program in between? I'm sure they've always found a way to make it work, but it's just uncharted territory, and it'll be kind of crazy to see if it actually does happen.
I say if they're going to postpone it, just that's going to be the WrestleMania that just doesn't happen. I just don't see logically from a storytelling aspect where you're going to put it. Are you just going to cancel SummerSlam in Boston because you can't do it in August? I don't know why you would do WrestleMania in June and then do a WrestleMania in August. It just that time period just doesn't work.
It wouldn't feel the same.
It wouldn't feel the same. So I still in the belief that WrestleMania is still going to happen as it's going to happen. I don't have any. I'm not a doctor, so again, I'm not going to insult people's intelligence, and I'm not thumping my nose at this coronavirus thing. I just don't know how long this is going to last, and it's always whether it's rumors or dirt sheet stuff. Until I hear something from WWE's website, I'm not going to make any assumptions that's going to be postponed. So if that was going to be the case, I'd say to scrap it for that year.
I mean, you have to know that, the powers that be and the company wants WrestleMania to go on. Like I said, it completely screws up their schedule. But at the same time, it would just be tough for me as a wrestling fan to not have a WrestleMania. I think even if it is postponed, I think there will be a quote-unquote WrestleMania. It might change their plans, but like WWE always says, in any town they perform in or go to, cars have changed. So obviously people know what's going on in the world, and they have to make the best decision for fans and for their performers. I have a follow-up question for you, Josh, about this.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather watch WrestleMania live with no fans in the arena at all, or would you rather than postpone WrestleMania and have the house be packed and have it be like WrestleMania, just not at the same time?
I don't know about the empty arena. I'd probably say no to that because, I remember the tribute show they did to, Chris Benoit where they had Vince McMahon and other people walking in the empty arena. You remember that show? When
it was
just
go up in his limit.
Obviously, a very different situation and more serious issues with that, but just the visual aspects of the empty arena, I just don't think it would work, But I have one last 3-count question.
Okay.
And, it's for myself. Matt, 4 years later, who do you think won the Charlotte-Sasha debate? The video boss or the audio boss? I think they're going to like to say that video trumps audio.
You guys always say that. How much time do we have, Josh? Because I could I can go off on this topic for a long time.
Yeah, make it a couple minutes. We got to get our final segment in.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to tell. I mean, Charlotte Flair, like I said a couple years ago, she has been positioned as the greatest women's wrestler of all time from the start, and she's grown and she's gotten better. Are you talking about in terms of who's the better wrestler or who won the debate based off their argument? Also, debate.
Yes,
I still think I won. My whole argument was that, look, I mean, Charlotte is a great heel, but she doesn't play babyface well, and every metric that is out there, whether it's merchandise, ratings, being a draw, being a mainstream star, social media followers, people coming to your signings, Charlotte is popular, but it's not the same. Sasha Banks can play the boss, she can play the face Sasha Banks. I just think that she's more versatile as a character and performer. Charlotte has her wheelhouse, and she's great at what she does. She's perfected. I remember when Charlotte used to yell into the microphone, but she worked through that. And she does make people look good, but there's nobody that makes wrestlers look better than Sasha Banks. And I do think that people sometimes are a little bit unfair and don't recognize how many great matches she has had, and how many times what are the greatest women's wrestling matches ever? What are the greatest matches of the year where Sasha is involved in all those matches? And at a certain point, you have to kind of recognize that. Either way, the debate was a lot of fun. And I remember when we initially decided to do it, we were going to do more debates. So maybe that's in the cards, whether it's Sasha versus Charlotte or something different. But it was so much fun. You're a great moderator, and it's a night that I'll never forget. It was just a perfect storm.
I'm hoping whenever we do the Pipe Bomb reunion show, maybe a week or two after the 200th episode here, we'll figure out sooner or later. That's definitely a show that we'll do. So for the Pipe Bomb fans, we'll definitely have the reunion show sooner or later. But it's gonna be a trip once we have Derek and B-Rob back on the same show.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna have a lot of trouble not recording for 3 hours like we did last time for that.
Yeah.
How long we recorded for 2.5 hours for the debate. And we had to cut it off, and that's before like we talk way before like.
Right.
That's always crazy, like, you know, getting into podcasting, like you're like, oh my God, like how am I gonna talk for an hour and a half? Like, and you get into it and just start talking wrestling with people. And we used to look at the clock and it was 3 a.m. and we still have 20 questions left. And I was like, oh my God, because you know, there's so many great topics and it's so easy to talk about something you're passionate about with other people that are passionate as well. So always a good time.
I usually like to keep my podcast around 80 minutes or so. So let's hit the go home button. Usually when we did the go the fuck home segment, it would be for people that are just absolutely ridiculous and just need to go home and just shut the fuck up already.
Yeah.
But I have a positive go the fuck home to start off. My go the fuck home goes to the British Bulldog, because Bulldog, you're fucking going home. You're going to the Hall of Fame. Long overdue, man. The British Bulldog is first on my go the fuck home list. Awesome performer. I think I first started watching Bulldog when he was wrestling in his jeans. There that run on SmackDown's like late 90s or so. But British Bulldog, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time for the United Kingdom, inspired a lot of current wrestlers from the NXT UK, and very long overdue induction. Very happy for his family and, of course, the Hart family as well. So congrats to Davey Boy Smith for going into the Hall of Fame this year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you as a guy that should have been in the Hall of Fame a long time ago. And it was weird because it was announced on Twitter and it didn't seem like it was a big deal. But, you know, as wrestling fans, we know it's a big deal because it's been hanging over their heads for a long time. And just to kind of tail off that, the Hall of Fame class this year is stacked. Like it is. I don't think I've ever seen a Hall of Fame class that's this loaded. It's going to be a great Hall of Fame ceremony. In terms of, it's weird because I don't really have a go the fuck home, say the fuck home moment at this point. If I were to pick one, because I mean, there's not like one wrestler that I'm like, oh my God. Now that I'm like, oh, I don't want to see you anymore. I mean, I was watching NXT a little bit last night, and forgive me, I don't remember his name, but the guy that's a cowboy, I'm just not into at all. I don't take
Cameron Grimes?
Yeah, I'm not into it at all. But in terms of historically, obviously, you know, I'm not a huge fan of Bret Hart at all. I think he's pompous and he's cocky, and I can't stand his mouth sometimes. I remember so many times that we did this segment, and he would just start making comments about Seth Rollins and how he's a bad worker and women's wrestling, and he just needs to shut his mouth. So historically, Bret Hart. In terms of what my answer is, I think it's kind of the central theme of what I've been talking about on the show today is that I'll tell all the fans, AEW fans and also wrestling fans that are going to be negative and not enjoy this time we have right now to go the fuck home. Just because, you know, we've never seen a time like this where there's so much content out there. And, you know, if you do love wrestling, you should be able to find something you can sink your teeth into. Not that WWE is perfect, not that AEW is all bad or whatever. I'm not saying that to say a certain statement, but I just think that, just for example, like when people freaked out about Goldberg and Bray Wyatt and John Cena, you know, it was just way too much. And I knew it was going to happen, and it's frustrating to see. Everybody has their own opinions, and criticism is great. I was always 100% honest with you guys on, you know, on the show or the Pipe Bomb or the Shattered Glass Cast, but you know, there is a line there, and I would just encourage people to just kind of watch and see what happens, and also to look at the business from the business side. You know, it's not just about, oh, this, you know, Ricochet lost, so he's buried, and all this ridiculous boo-hoo stuff. Oh my gosh, Gallows and Anderson, they must hate their lives because, you know, they never won a tag team championship. And I think it's funny that every time somebody criticizes Carl Anderson on Twitter, he talks about his hot Asian wife and how much money they have, which at the end of the day, it's a job for them. And it's also business. You know, I did want to talk about how WWE and the whole landscape has changed with their new TV deals. And, you know, people have to understand that you don't get to see the metrics that sponsors give to WWE or somebody's rating or the financials of what's going on in the company. You may be reported by Dave Meltzer or, you know, wrestling journalists, but you don't get to see the whole picture or the behind the scenes thing. So, you know, yeah, it's wrestling and there's wins and losses, but it's a lot bigger than just that. There's a lot more to do. There's a lot more that's on the line, and there's a lot more factors than just X, Y, and Z. So that I know was long-winded, but that's kind of where I'm going at when it comes to go home. Just change your attitude and your outlook.
My go the fuck home pick. I only have one, and this is not gonna shock people who listen to the podcast. My go the fuck home is Marco Stunt.
Yeah, you make me laugh, man.
I swear, nothing wants me to change the channel more on Dynamite when I had to find out that Stunt is having a 2-segment match. And by the way, Dynamite, if you want a better wrestling TV show, not every match needs to be 2 segments. Let me just throw that out there really quick. Marco Stunt, I'm putting my eggs in the basket. I am not a fan of his. I understand he gets pops and all that, and that's wonderful. There's certain things in pro wrestling that I had to suspend disbelief. And the fact that this dude does finishers on guys that should be considered potential world champions and other title holders, it's just a disconnect for me. So, Marco Stunt, you could go the fuck home. And JR, you need to stop saying Jungle Boy Jack Perry because you're throwing me off when I'm doing my transcripts, all right?
I don't know, man. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I had the unique experience of going to the show in Philly where Luchasaurus got hurt that day and he couldn't go. And
is that the Chorus Center?
Yeah, he had to wrestle and be in the match. It changed the whole thing that day, and I was really, really impressed. I didn't really know who he was as a part of the faction when I went to the show and we were up top. I was like, wait. I was like, is there a girl in the ring? Like, why is there like a kid in the ring? I'm not really sure who that is. And it was him, and he did impress me. And I do love the whole Luchasaurus thing. It's pretty cool, but I do agree with you in that AEW, there's only so many times that I can see Kenny Omega and MJF tag and beat somebody in a match that I've seen multiple times, or Private Party versus Lucha Bros, which 2 great tag teams, but you keep throwing that over and over and over. That's what people criticize WWE for. So,
right.
As a wrestling fan, whether it's AEW or WWE, if I don't feel like I need to watch the match because I'm a fan, I know what's going on, I know where the story is going, and I've seen the match before, like I'm not gonna watch it, which is different than your perspective because you do the transcript, so you're watching every single match. But if it's not giving me a reason to watch and it's not advancing the story, I'm not going to watch it. So I think AEW needs to be careful when it comes to doing those repeat matches over and over again. And also now that I brought up AEW in terms of what they can do better, secondary storylines, just building up your whole roster. And obviously it's very top heavy, and I like Orange Cassidy and they have built a few people up, but just, having different storylines that feel kind of the same as their main event or on the same level. It's just different. It's just a different show because WWE would do that, but it'd be presented different.
Right. My only thing with AEW is I just think that some matches overstays welcome, and the nod that I'll give to NXT is the fact that they still find a way to sneak in enough promos and character development instead of relying matches to be the character development for these performers on AEW. I think my opinions on commentaries changed over time. I think they got a little bit more of a flow now, where at first I thought Excalibur absolutely sucked. Now I actually started to like him, especially you know who the real AEW announce team should be? It should be him and Taz, because that's the best announce crew that they have on their show, and they have it on AEW Dark, by the way. By the way, let me give a shout out to NWA Power, because that's probably my favorite show right now besides NXT UK, and the Aaron Stevens a fucking trip. And also shout out to the Real World's champion Nick Aldis. So happy for that dude. That guy was kind of like blackballed after leaving TNA, and now this guy's like at the top of the world and he's kicking ass. So it was awesome to see that. So with that being said, man, Mr. Matt McCool, I want to thank you so much for agreeing to come on the podcast today. This was long overdue. This went by really faster than I thought while we're recording. Already hour 50 minutes into this thing. It's absolutely insane. But honestly, thank you for coming on, Brett. I appreciate it. And I hope you had a good time on the podcast.
I had a blast, Josh. I really, really, really appreciate you having me on. It feels so great to be back on air. Shook the cobwebs off a little bit, a little nervous. Obviously, when you learn how to swim, you jump back in the pool. You can do it again. It takes a little bit of time, but always great talking wrestling with you. And I did want to mention one thing. We did say we were going to talk about the Ruthless aggression. So I wanted to get your quick thoughts on that. Just really quick for me. I love it. Ruthless aggression got me into wrestling. Evolution got me into wrestling. I love what WWE has done with the series. I didn't really expect it. I think it's also done a lot better than their Attitude Era thing. There's more backstage. It's more done as a documentary and realism. Obviously, they do leave certain things out. That's understandable. But I love how they focus on each faction, and I do think that Ruthless Aggression is a very underappreciated era in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
It's just unfortunate because I don't necessarily think that there's going to be another show after this when it comes to an era, because after that it just kind of was a hodgepodge for like the last 10 years. And I'm also disappointed I'm not going to get to see these episodes until the fall. But kudos to WWE for creating a show that I literally, whenever it came out on Monday, I watched it as soon as possible. So I've loved it so far.
I want to thank my teachers in high school that helped me out in typing class, because I wouldn't be able to do any of these articles that I do. Like, I literally have a movie style script for these documentary shows that I cover. And my favorite episode so far for the series was the John Cena episode and Evolution. You want some honesty and some self-reflection. The fact that John Cena looks himself as a failure at the beginning part of his career, I thought it was very, very interesting. It was nice to see who Brian Gewirtz actually is. Like, you heard of him all the time. I thought he did a good job on the show, but also at times I felt too many times he was compartmentalizing what the fans on Twitter would be thinking at the time, instead of speaking about his experience and what the writers were thinking about during that era. I thought he was trying to surmise what the fans were thinking at the time, instead of talking about his experience. And that was the role of Bruce Pritchard, who I thought played a big role in this series. He was all over the place in this.
Yeah,
I know. My favorite episode of the series was Evolution. Evolution was one of my favorite factions as a kid, and that you want to see some real Triple H and why I'm inspired by this dude, go watch that episode, man. There's some really, really good stuff in that episode as well.
It's Evolution, and I'm right there with you. I mean, I used to walk around thinking that I was a part of Evolution, listening to music, thinking, oh, my dad, my granddad, like the music and everything. It was such a powerful era. And also to what we talked about a little bit earlier, like, it was so cool just watching the episodes and just kind of learning the perspective of the company when it comes to, okay, John Cena is going to beat JBL. We're going to take these two guys and we're going to make them into superstars. When you're watching that as an 11-year-old kid or a kid in middle school, like, you don't necessarily understand that. And as you go back and you look at it and you realize that it is a business, and that they have to make decisions. And they were in a really big bind. I mean, developmental wasn't even a splitter of what it is today at all. It was OVW or FCW, not the same. They had a real issue in creating new stars, and it's an issue that a lot of people have talked about the last 10 years, but it was a real problem then. And how many people they had on the roster. So for a company to completely split the brands, have them compete, which was a genius idea, it really made both rosters better. And it made you want to tune into both shows each week because there was different storylines, and they took the page out of WCW, and it just was very, very cool to see and learn the perspective of a few different guys from back then. And the Evolution show, I could watch that 1,000 times.
Right.
I've argued with people. I think that if you watch that episode, my personal opinion, you recognize that Evolution is the most influential faction in the history of WWE. In terms of before people jump down my throat, NWO, DX, obviously great factions, Four Horsemen. But in that, what Evolution did for the business, it reinvigorated Ric Flair's career. It made Triple H the biggest heel in wrestling and the star of the show. He already was, and it created two main event caliber superstars that were able to carry the company for about 10 years, and one guy that's still wrestling. So it accomplished its goals. They were cool. The music was awesome. The story was told the right way. And at the end of the day, it really did help put Randy and Batista on the map. And I think that's important to understand as well.
Matt, where could people follow you on social media?
So, unfortunately, Twitter locked me out of my account in September. So I do have a new account. My account is at MattMcCool24. So follow me on Twitter. I'll be tweeting about wrestling and sports stuff. Again, Josh, it was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for the opportunity for me to get back on air. It's been something I've wanted to do for a long time, and it's always fun to shoot shit, and let's do it again soon.
Absolutely. We'll definitely do that again. Make sure to follow yours truly on Twitter at TheHootsPodcast. I'll interact with you. Only thing I ask is don't speak for me. Don't put words in my mouth. If you disagree with the tweet, I understand that, but I'm not going to engage in dialogue where you try to spin words and put words in my mouth just because you disagree with something I say. I'm tired of dealing with idiots on Twitter who think they can speak for me and try to call me out myself. Hey, I'm on Twitter. I really don't care about social media. I'm on it to promote my work. And the last thing I'm going to do is put energy on idiots on Twitter that think they're going to act like they're smarter than what they actually are. So, also, I'm on Instagram at Joshie Lopez 94. Also have a music page at Josh Lopez Music where I post guitar covers so you can see me play around with my Sasha's Link fingers and try to make some covers sound good. I play anything from Dan and Shay to Maroon 5, just a lot of different bands. Anything but Justin Bieber. So with that said, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, anywhere you get your podcast from. Leave us a 4 or 5 star review. It helps expand the reach of the show. And make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Hoots Podcast. Make sure to give a shout out to Brother Carter and B-Rob with 3R Show. And I want to thank you guys so much for supporting the podcast. And finally, bookmark ProWrestlingTranscriptions.com. That's my website where I post all my transcripts for all your favorite pro wrestling shows. So, for Matt McCool, I'm Josh Lopez. Thank you guys so much for checking out episode 196 of the Hoots Podcast. We'll be back next week for episode 197, and the world of WrestleMania continues. Peace.